Warriors. Welcome to the 11 Warriors post-game report. Jason Priestis, Chris Lauderback, live at the 11 Warriors bunker in downtown Columbus. Ohio State escapes. Do I want to use the word escapes?
Hangs on. Didn't dominate. That's for sure.
No.
That's not a word you're going to use.
No, not dominate. Gets out Nebraska 26-17. And I've been banging on this for weeks that Nebraska is the best awful team in college football. And again, not a good team. I'm not saying they're a good team, but man, this is the fourth loss to a top 10 team by 9 points or fewer.
Yeah.
That's insane. And all six of their losses are 9 or fewer.
Yep. They've hung in for sure. Yeah, you got to give them some credit. I think you still have to point to there's a lot of things Ohio State could have done better today. Did Nebraska influence some of that? Absolutely, right? Road game, as you said, they've played teams tough. They're not void of talent. But you watch that game too, and you see some things where Ohio State, particularly on offense, right? Like the defense to me showed up today and did pretty well. Mm-hmm. They were great on third down. They had a couple drives, obviously, where Nebraska put up some points, but generally speaking, they did what you would want them to do. If they hold a team to 17 points, 13 below their season average, you got to feel pretty good that Ohio State's going to win. But yeah, just one offensive touchdown there in the second half for the Buckeyes.
Yep. Ryan Day goes to 23-0 against Big Ten foes. That's pretty good. But yeah, a lot closer game than people probably thought coming in. Got to give it up top of the show. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 15 catches, 240 yards, 1 touchdown. The 15 catches are a school record. The 240 yards are the most, or second most ever in Ohio State history. Mm-hmm. Monster day today with Garrett Wilson out of the lineup. Yeah,
he was everything you wanted and then some today. He's been doing work all season in the slot, obviously, for Ohio State, one of C.J. Stroud's favorite targets. And his ability for yards after the catch continues to be huge. Obviously, his long 75-yard touchdown was a short pass that he got a nice block from Olave and had a ton of yards after the catch there. But all day long, he's been able to take the ball and then advance it after he catches it, which, again, continues to amaze because last year in limited duty, he averaged like 5 yards a catch. So he's really been a big play machine for Ohio State this year.
Neil Harris already weighing in on YouTube saying speechless. It's a W. It wasn't the greatest day.
Yeah.
But, just win, baby. We said it last week. We'll say it this week. There's a lot of football still to be played. The Big Ten, especially as the weather gets uglier, it gets tougher to play these games.
Yeah, it does. And you're an optimist, which is something that I love about you. But I definitely get the speechless from some fans as well. Like just offensively, a lot to question today. Penalties again, and just a lot of stupid mistakes. Couldn't get out of their own way. The Day's obviously way smarter than we'll ever be. But the play calling a couple times, I wasn't really sure what was going on, and continue to be a little flummoxed by just the run-pass option. You've got this starting quarterback who's done some great things, but is prone to making some mistakes, obviously. But you continue to put it on him almost every single play. Feels like a little bit of playing with fire there.
Noah Ruggles, kicker, 4 for 4 today.
How about that guy?
15 of 15 on the season. I get the impression that fans and maybe Ohio State staff didn't know what they had in him. Because Dave was going for it on fourth down a lot this year. You're looking at it now like this guy can kick a little bit, maybe get some 3 points every now and then, right?
Right. Well, I think Dave's got a lot of confidence in his offense, and I actually like it more often than not when he goes for it on fourth down.
I do too.
I like those percentages. You see that even in the NFL, more and more teams are realizing that statistically that's the better play if it's not fourth and super long. So I don't know a problem there, but you're right. It felt like even when Ruggles transferred in, it's like, this is just a guy that's going to compete for the job. We'll see what happens. It was to bring some competition for a true freshman, right? Because I think Jake Siebert was the other guy. That was it, right?
Yep.
And Ruggles has come in and, obviously had some game experience, but it didn't seem like a shoe-in that he would start. And what 14 for 14? Is that what you said?
15 now.
15 of 15 and 4 of 4 today with some long 3 in the second half. 3 in the second half, right?
Yep.
So you got to feel great about. Those weren't chip shots. Had a 2 46-yarders and a 35-yarder in the second half. With the game, Ohio State was always up in front, but those were not gimmies. Yeah, in a road environment where you really need them.
Yeah. And flip side, Nebraska missed 2 field goals in the game.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, it was 23-17. You're thinking if I'm a Nebraska fan, first of all, I'm probably stabbing myself. Second of all, I'm like, man, this is this is a game we should be tied in.
Yeah, absolutely. They were competitive all day, and Ruggles, man, I can't give him enough credit.
You look back to the Oklahoma game, Nebraska lost. They had enough points and missed field goals, 2 missed field goals, and they had a PAT blocked that flips the game.
Yeah.
Because the Sooners ran it back the other direction.
They gave up like a punt return. Like gave up a special team score or something too.
The Sooners ran the PAT back.
Yeah.
So if you add all the points up, they win that game somehow if they could kick.
Yeah, they can't get out of their own way. And then, we talked at the half, like we're waiting for the big Taylor Martinez mistake. It really never came. You saw it at the very, very end there after the game was really over.
Yeah.
The last gasp, great play by Steel Chambers to pick it off the deflection. But he never really made the big mistake today. But at the same token, he was never really, he didn't go wild.
Yeah, defense pretty good on third down today. We'll talk a little bit more on the second. Let's get into what happened, how we got to 26-17. Scoreless first quarter, only the second time all season. The Bucs did not score in the first quarter, Oregon being the other game. Some shaky stuff from Stroud early. Had an early interception on a drive that he honestly could have thrown 3 picks on that one. Finally threw a pick, and dude, you could have run there and got the first down.
He finally threw one.
He gave it the old college try. Nebraska got it back after that pick on Ohio State's second series and drives down and misses a chip shot. We just talked about their field goal woes. Buckeyes got an earlier field goal, then Stroud to Olave for 3 yards to make it 10-0 second quarter. Nebraska gets a field goal finally, a 39-yarder to make it 10-3. Then Ohio State answered right away. A 75-yard bomb. I shouldn't say a bomb. It was a 75-yard.
It was really a hitch and then
catch and run.
Off.
Yeah, to JSN for the touchdown to make it 17-3. At that point in the first half, he had 7 for 140. You're like, this dude's on pace for a pretty good day. Turns out he did have that good day. Nebraska answered right away. Like 2 plays later, man, they got a 72-yard strike to get them in the end zone, make it 17-10, and that's the score we took to the halftime. Ohio State D opened the second half with a couple really good sacks of Martinez. You're like, okay, Bucs are going to take this game over, put it away. That's what I'm thinking, at least. Are you?
I don't know if they thought they were going to put it away, but you're hoping they're at least going to get a little bit more breathing room there.
Yeah, Buckeyes would drive and get a 46-yard Ruggles field goal to make it 20-10.
And really wasted some good field position. Smith and Jigma had a 21-yard punt return there, but they couldn't run the ball. Then they got a holding on DeJuan Jones, and then Travian hurt his ankle and was out for
Don't forget, Travian got hurt on third down there. And,
so 46-yarder to make it 20-10. So you got some points there, but again, just felt like can't get out of your own way with the holding.
Yeah, everything was earned today. More pressure from the OSU defense on the next drive, forced a punt. Buckeyes got another good field position, but flags were a big story today. Didn't have a ton of them. What, they have like 7 or so for the afternoon?
A couple declined. I don't know what the final number ended up being, but there were a couple declined as well. Probably at least 2 or 3 declined.
8 for 65.
Yeah.
8 for 65 is the final number.
But at least 2 were declined, if not 3.
So good 10 or 11 maybe on the board.
Not great.
It felt like the penalties, and so many of them were just dumb plays, right? And they weren't bad calls. You're like, yeah, that's a hold, or that's a bad, whatever. That's a false start. Or guys downfield when you're throwing. It just seemed to take away some of the flow offensively and defensively, because there's a defensive hold one time too that was like, man, you get that back, they don't get any points.
Right? Yeah, exactly. No, what would they have last week? I think they had 10 for 75, something like that last week. We talked about 7 pre-snap and how many were in the red zone last week. That really, was the main reason why they went 1 of 6 in the red zone last week, scoring touchdowns. So yeah, it continues to be a problem for a second straight week.
Travian Henderson did return from injury, came back to the game. He was healthy. He ripped off a nice run at the end. I think late in the fourth quarter, you're ripping off an 11-yard run. You're like, you told me that was the long for the day.
Yeah, it was his longest to the point. He had 22-yarder a couple plays after that, but then Stroud wasted it with the fumble and put him in position where they would need to kick another long field goal.
In the fourth, Nebraska would answer a little bit with a 53-yard catch and run by Torrey, the guys that also scored the 72-yard touchdown for him. And Martinez punched in from the 1 on the next play. It was 23-17, a score we talked about again. They had the 2 missed field goals. And then Stroud followed that up with a pick on the next Ohio State possession. You're thinking, Nebraska, were you ever thinking Nebraska's going to win this game?
No, you got me choked up. No, I was never thinking Nebraska was going to win the game, but I just kept thinking, like, when's Ohio State going to put this thing away, right? When are they going to get up a couple scores that really then forces Martinez to make a mistake, and maybe they'll get even more breathing room, but yeah, that never really came to fruition. So no, never thought the outcome, was in jeopardy, but defense played pretty well today, but overall, I didn't think that was an impressive showing. Even with everything you're saying about Nebraska, the offense has me scratching my head a little bit.
Yep, big game against Purdue next week in Ohio Stadium. A lot of the comments flowing in on Facebook and YouTube are kind of roasting Ryan Day, man. It's weird to see this. Mike Green says Ryan Day put us in a position to lose. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that the pass with 2 minutes left that Stroud took the strip sack there at the end and Whippler fell on the fumble. That was a great balance for Ohio State because that could be big problems there. Yeah. It's like, and Clatton and Gus Johnson were kind of roasting him too. Like, why are you throwing the ball right now?
Right. And then the very next play they threw it again.
They did. They did.
So, but then that set it up to where they could get down and actually kick a field goal because they were not in field goal range. They had that play, and then on the 3rd and 16 or whatever it was, Travian got enough yards to get it down to the 29 to set up the 46-yarder to provide the game's final margin. But, yeah, I agree. I mean, the team just did not look well coached to me today on multiple occasions. Yep. Even the defense that was playing well, there were still some times where this team's got some troubles up the middle still. I'm sorry. Like, even as good as the defense played today, if you're sold on Lathan Ransom, you're watching different football than I am. Right. The fans kill Bryson Shaw, and I'm not saying he's all league by any stretch because he's had his own problems, but I think Ransom is a much bigger problem on defense than Bryson Shaw is. I still feel like at linebacker, a decision needs to be made that Steele Chambers has to start. Yeah. He is one of the 2 best linebackers on the team.
Difference maker.
Frankly, if I'm being real, I'm not sure Taraji Mitchell's one of the 2 best. Yeah. Simon and Steele Chambers seem to be the most active out there.
And Chambers, of course, was out for the first half.
He missed the first half. He comes in. He got the pass interference where he hit the running back in the backfield. Not a great play. But the guy is over the field making plays. He had the interception toward the end. I'm not saying the other linebackers are terrible. I just feel like Simon and Steele Chambers are the 2 closest things they have to playmakers at linebacker, but up the middle is a little struggle because even if one of those guys isn't playing well or one of the other linebackers that rotates in, you still at the safety position. Again, Ransom and Shaw sometimes can be hurt, and Ransom was hurt a couple times today for big plays, and on one of those, Shaw should have been there to help him and wasn't. You didn't see Burke. You didn't see Banks in the frame too often unless he was making a play. Cam Brown. I think the edges are fine. Up the middle, not so much in the back 7.
Some stuff to sort out. But going back to Day and his play calling, like 99% of the time I love how he calls games because he calls games aggressively.
Yeah.
And kind of like I played Madden, and I appreciate. I think a lot of fans appreciate. They're like, yeah, I do the same thing in Madden that Day does. But sometimes it kind of backfires, man. It backfired a little bit in Oregon for too many 4th downs probably in that game on 4th downs.
Yeah, not taking points when you can get them.
In the red zone there. And then again, man, passing late in the game and following it up. And I think that he's a quarterback, played quarterback in college, develops quarterbacks really well at Ohio State. He's that guy. I think he loves passing so much and loves designing passing plays and crosses and meshes, and he's so good at that it kind of melts his brain, and he's got to tell himself, all right, Ryan, remember to run. Remember to run. You know what? If Ohio State had a top running back, like if Travian was committed this year, and I was trying to get Travian on another school, I would negatively recruit. So right. Many games are going to get 4 carries. You know that, right? I mean, that's how it goes up there.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, I talked about it at the first half. I mean, and it played out the same way in the second. Stroud threw it 54 times today, and the team ran it 30 times. If you look at the splits in the first half versus the second half, Ohio State ran it 16 times in the first half, ran it 14 in the second, while throwing it 30 and 24. So just really not what you've seen historically from Day at all, as I also talked about in the first half. Coming into this game, the 2019 and 2020 seasons, Day was calling run plays 62% of the time. He's only been calling run plays 51% of the time this year. Today, that was even more lopsided.
Is that because he's got way better receivers this year than he's ever had?
I think that's part of it, and I also think Stroud's obviously not a runner, and Fields would run some. So that's certainly part of it, but they're just downs where you see all right, let's see if or a series where it's let's see if you can establish the run here. Maybe you want to run a little bit of clock, and it's just, it's pass. So.
Mike Green on Facebook weighs in and says, fellas, it's like he only wants to run to call and set up his pass plays.
Yeah.
There might be some too, because it usually works the other way around for most coaches, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, they still won today, right? So we definitely need to keep that in mind, but you saw him, last week in the press conference, he made a big deal about how, we had perfect balance. We threw it 34 times and we ran it 34 times versus Penn State, which they did. Yep. That was still off schedule from what he's done the first couple of years. And then today was even more lopsided. Yeah. So, that's tough. But when you're averaging 3 yards a carry, it's kind of yin and yang, right? What are you going to do when you're not really moving the ball?
But someone else could say you got to stick to it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the Barry Sanders model, 2 yards, 78 yards. You've got to commit to it.
Yeah, no, you're preaching to the choir. I think that's what I'm saying. Sack adjusted, though, was still only 3.9 today. The offensive line has just not been looking dominant the last couple weeks at all. We talked about how there was some shuffling up front today. Dewan didn't start. Petit Ferrer was back at right tackle instead of left, and you had Munford at left tackle with Matthew Jones in there, and then they kind of went to what they've been running all year. But at no point did they look dominant on the run game. Henderson finished 21 for 92 for a 4.4 average. He had 33 of those yards on their last drive.
Yeah, Mike Lawson on Facebook saying his play calling and Stroud's mistakes are going to cost a shot at the Big Ten championship. Maybe. I don't think so. I mean, this team's still talented enough to do it. I will say, though, you don't – I wouldn't if I was Ryan Day. And as a fan, I don't want this. I don't want CJ passing 50 times a game.
No.
And 40 should be – he's a great passer. He's got good receivers. If you're passing more than 40 times a game, something's wrong.
Right, and
something's
some of it
wrong.
depends on how many total plays are actually ran, obviously, to understand what that 40 means as a percentage to the whole. But if you're throwing that many times, you're either behind or you have no confidence that you're going to be able to run the ball, and neither one of those are good. So I think the offense, which is funny because, I mean, they had 495 yards today.
I mean, they did.
And you're sitting here I'm feeling like, man, they still got some stuff they need to get figured out on offense. And I think that's true, even though they had 495 yards of total offense. So the fact of the matter is, though, they did not reach the end zone in the second half and went for 3 field goals. That is just not what you're looking for.
What do you got on tap here today?
On tap, I'm still rocking the Rebel Yell 10-year single barrels. I mentioned at the half a weeded bourbon. You don't see too many weeded single barrels that are 10 years old, so I like it. It's weeded bourbons are always sweet, but this one's not quite as sweet because of the age. So I'm a big fan. Nice value bottle, probably like $60 if you can find it.
Got the nice 11 Warriors whiskey glass here, enjoying it out of that. We have more of these coming in stock on Monday. So 2 days, we'll have some in. We'll have them on the store, drygoods.11warriors.com. We got some teas to show off, too.
Well, if beer's your thing as well, we got some pint glasses in there, too, that you can't miss.
We do. I did stick with the G0 today. I went a little light because I was nervous about the game. I knew this was a good, bad team, and I didn't want to have too many beers in me. But G0 did the job today. What do you got over there?
I got a little, every game is a home game. Just hit Dry Goods yesterday, so make sure you go out there and pop that if you're going to hit the road for any of the games coming up.
I've seen that stadium before. It's a big urinal about 3
hours
north.
On Michigan.
3 hours north of here, right?
You're gonna watch the copyright stuff every now and then. But yeah, grab this. Obviously, great quality T-shirts as well.
I take it back. It's probably nice. It's a generic stadium that looks a lot like Michigan Stadium.
Right. Yeah, it's just a road stadium.
Yeah. Another one we got here. Got again drygoods.11warriors.com. We'll drink to old Ohio till we wobble in our shoes. I've always loved the expression wobbling in your shoes.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Well, it's a good feeling, too, when you get a chance to do it.
I've had some shoe wobbling before.
Yeah.
I've been there. We've all been there, right? What else we got out there? Who else is weighing in here? Randall Perkins says, at least Stroud learned a lot today. Day gave him the rock and a chance to lead this team. Best way to get better. This guy sounds like me, man. Always glass half full. I like it, Randall. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think so. I mean, every week Stroud's learning. And the great thing about Ryan Day is your quarterback coach, if you're CJ Stroud, getting to watch film with him, like those film sessions got to be just awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, his brains is probably getting swole every week, you know, just from stuff. And especially in games like this where he doesn't play perfectly because there's things to teach.
Right. Yeah, when he seems like a willing student. I think Day has talked a lot about how he can watch film and take it to the field. So that's obviously a good thing for Ohio State. And yeah, I mean, he's had an excellent year as a first year as a starter. People are spoiled when Justin Fields does what he does his first year as a starter, and Haskins doing what he did. You know, Stroud is still, got a good shot to end up in New York. I mean, there's still some big games left to be played. He just, today, obviously you can't take that strip sack there. But one thing I will say is that I think over the course of the season, interceptions have been a bigger problem than him not feeling pressure or not taking the care of the ball behind the line of scrimmage.
Pretty good in the pocket.
Fields took way more sacks than Stroud ever does. Like, Stroud may not take off and run, which pisses off, a lot of Buckeye fans, but he had a handful of throwaways today. So I think he's a little bit more careful with the ball behind the line of scrimmage, or aware, I guess, than maybe you might give him credit for. But still some room to grow there. Obviously, I do think that he's gotten a lot better in that situation. The big thing is just people wanting to take off and run when something's there, and that still seems like something he's very reluctant to do.
Got to put Tate in there, light a fire in him, like they did with Haskins back in the day.
Maybe.
Jeremy Latham, I wonder if. Has weighs in on Facebook, says, I think Wilson being out had more of an effect on CJ's decision-making skills. He always knows where either Olave and Wilson are going to be as an open target. Smith and Jigba became a man today on the field. Agree with that?
Yeah, well, I think Smith and Jigba was already a man. I think he's been a stud all year. Obviously, Olave and Wilson get all the hype and get the talk nationally, but if you looked at their stats even coming in today, Smith and Jigba is very competitive with those guys in stats, and I think actually led in yards per catch, and I'm sure still does after the big pass today. So I think he's already arrived. But I absolutely agree with the point that if you don't have Wilson in there, that's going to hurt, especially when it seemed like Fleming got a lot of the snaps.
Yep.
And I think that he's just been a guy, injuries and things like that, but he doesn't always have a lot of separation. You've got to make a pretty good throw to find him.
He had a flag on him once. Harrison had a flag. Yeah, and Harrison had a drop,
had a
big drop.
And had a drop. So yeah, I think that one of those two outside spots. The X, I think you do create a situation if you don't have ultimate confidence in that guy. And we talked about all the wide receiver talent that Ohio State has, and absolutely has a ton of it. They've not rotated because the top three are so good. They've not rotated those backups as much as as Heartline might lead you to believe they're going to do leading into a season.
Right.
Not a criticism, but one of those guys goes out. Stroud doesn't have near as much cohesion and chemistry with one of those backups because they've played so many snaps with the starters and so few with truly the second stringers.
Good point. Someone on Facebook saying that Ruggles is the MVP of today's game. I'm not sure. I mean, he played well. It's tough to not pick the guy that set the school record with 15 for 240 receiving.
I think the point there is, give a nod to the kicker, right? And I think we're absolutely doing that because he was awesome. A couple other guys that stand out, obviously Smith and Jigba. I thought Tyreek Smith was awesome today. Nebraska's offensive line is trash, but Ohio State defensive line has really come on the last handful of weeks, and they did a lot of it without Tyreek Smith out there because he was hurt. Having him back, he was pretty good last week against Penn State, and I thought he was really good again today. There was one possession in particular where I feel like he was a factor in every play, and for the day he had 5 tackles, 4th on the team, a breakup, a hurry, and a sack. So pretty good day from him, especially knowing, I don't know what his snap count was, we'll know here in a day, but they rotate a ton. Jack Sawyer was another guy I thought played very well today.
Valerie Ann on Facebook says, I would like to suggest to Stroud to hide his body language where he's intending to pass the ball. Very good advice there. Turn to your target at the last minute instead of facing that way the whole time. I think a lot of quarterbacks would love to master that. It's maybe easier said than done sometimes.
Right.
But the body, there's something to be said to being able to look guys off, look safeties off, make safeties drop.
Body language is interesting too. I think that was a bigger problem earlier in the year. He's kind of sulking. Obviously, Oregon reason to sulk, but kind of hung his head a little bit, would show that he was hurt a little bit, and I think he's gotten a lot better about that. Even on the sidelines, you've heard teammates talk about he's much more vocal in between possessions and those types of things, talking to the offensive line and that kind of stuff. So I think he's definitely growing into leadership role. I think Day was even talking about that this week in his presser about the growth that they've seen from him, or maturity they've seen from him in that way.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely fair. Ryan Day again moves to 23-0 against the Big Ten. Purdue comes to town, Ohio Stadium next week. Looking at the score, 7-7 Purdue in West Lafayette against Michigan State right now. Purdue's I think better team than most of us thought they might be coming into the year.
Yeah, they kind of feel like Nebraska light, really. I mean, obviously a much better record, but they don't get any more run nationally. But they're a team that can make some noise. Certainly a team Ohio State's going to have to prepare for next week because they keep saying it, survive and advance, and that sure as hell what it feels like with some of these games.
Yeah, and again, Purdue's a lot of bad Ohio State vibes with that team, and upset Iowa a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of hoping they got their upset juice out of them, but man, I don't know if that was an upset in retrospect. Looking at some other scores out there across the nation, we got a final in Chapel Hill. North Carolina 58, number 9 Wake Forest 55.
Ooh, wow.
So we got a top 10 upset already. The afternoon just started, man. We got a top 10 team out of there.
Yeah.
Pitt 54, Duke 29. That was down in Durham. Some games that kicked off. West Virginia 3-0 over number 11 Oklahoma State. Wisconsin 7, Rutgers 3. Number 1 Georgia. That game's a final 43-6 over Missouri. Georgia looks pretty good.
Yep.
We were calling a couple weeks ago where we want Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling that right now.
I don't think we need Georgia right now. No. Yeah, I think Ohio State needs a few weeks to try to put it all together. I mean, we've just seen this flip-flop, really, where the defense has kind of been, stepping up as of late, and you're kind of understanding or trying to figure out what's going on with the offense. It's certainly the story today. Again, just defense, back to that real quick. Nebraska, 361 total yards today. I think you mentioned it, 2 for 13 on third down, and only ran for 3.3 a carry, held Taylor Martinez to under 50% completion rate, or just over, I guess. He was at 52. So, got to feel pretty good about what those guys did because Nebraska is a competent offense. It's the turnovers that usually kill them.
Absolutely. Another game that's gone final in Minneapolis. Illinois 14, Number 20, Minnesota 6.
Oh my God.
That's 2 victims.
Yeah.
That's why he got Scott Frost at the beginning of the season. Burt has got 3 Big Ten scalps this year. He's got Scott Frost to start the season.
Didn't he talk about how his team has no talent?
Yeah, before they went to Penn State and won in 9 overtimes, he had a presser and talked about how
the upperclassmen stink.
His total roster sucked, and he can't do what he wants to do. And now they're winning for him. I don't know how that works. Typically that kind of thing backfires. I hate seeing Bielema have any kind of success. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. I don't want to see it. I don't know how much. I mean, he's having success for him, but I still feel like that program's obviously, pretty dead in the water.
Yep. Still early in the afternoon, and those are the finals. Jumping back to some comments, Randy Skilling wants to see McCord in.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to see that. I think that, especially at this point in the season, how many snaps has Stroud, logged compared to what McCord would be able to have right now when you think about throwing him into the fire.
Yeah.
Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan. I don't know how realistic that is.
I
mean,
agree.
at the end of the day, Stroud completed 67% of his passes today for 405 yards. He had the 2 picks. He had the fumble that Whippler recovered. Frankly, I put some of that on Day. You're asking this guy to throw it 54 times.
Too much.
You don't ask senior quarterback. You don't ask experienced quarterbacks to do that all the time. So, and that's not the first time that's happened this year.
Yeah.
I think some of that onus has to fall on Ryan Day's shoulders.
Yeah, it will be interesting what he says post game, and then of course Tuesday at media availability this week. Any last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Offense got to get it together. Penalties. This did not. It looked like a sloppy team again today for the second week in a row.
Tough one to watch.
Able to win. Able to win in spite of those mistakes. So you hang your hat on that and you celebrate that a little bit. But I'm sure what Day's going to put out there in the media is a little different than what he's telling the team. It's too late in the season to be having some of the mistakes that they're making, and certainly figuring out this running game. That's a problem that's got to get solved in very short order. Because if you're going to play Michigan State, you're going to play Michigan and be one-dimensional. I'm not sure that's going to have the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah. Again, big shout out to JSN Jackson Smith the Jigba, 15 catches, school record there, 240 yards, second most in program history. The long touchdown catch and run. Fantastic
awesome
day to him.
Awesome day. With Wilson out.
Yeah,
really
with Garrett Wilson out. Just what a heck of a receivers room. Purdue rolls into town next week to face the Buckeyes. That game time will be announced later tonight or tomorrow. We do know it's not going to be a primetime kickoff. It'll be noon or 3:30 or 4 p.m. So we do know that. And check 11warriors.com, and we'll have the latest on when that game kicks. And more coverage from Ohio State's 26-17 win over Nebraska today on the road. Jason Priestis, Chris Lauderback, the 11 Warriors post-game report. Thank you for joining us.